within the legal industry, it's a thirst for good content that is going to help them be better at their profession, smarter, more efficient, and more effective. And it's delivered in a way that they can, consume it whenever they want.
Today on Law Next, it's our 50th episode, and how better to market than by taking a look at the state of podcasting in the legal industry. And how better to do that than with the two guests we have with us today, Adam Camras, CEO of the Legal Talk Network, and Laurence Colletti, its executive producer. This is Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to Law Next, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. We'll get to today's interview in just a moment. But first, let's hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. And now, on to this week's interview. Well, Adam and Laurence, I'm really thrilled to have you guys on the show.
Thrilled to be here, Bob.
This is going to be a tough one because I've got two people on the show who know more about podcasting than I do.
Well, thanks for having us on, though. It's a real privilege to be on with you on your show.
Yeah, well, it's really exciting for me. I mean, as you guys well know, I spent an awful long time as part of the Legal Talk Network, and really have a lot of respect for what you guys do and what you guys have built there. And that's kind of where I wanted to start. Adam, I mean, you've been in the legal industry for a long time, but in 2013, your company Logical acquired the Legal Talk Network. And 2013 wasn't all that long ago, but in the world of podcasts, it was kind of a while ago. I mean, podcasts were nowhere near as big or as popular as they are now. So I'm wondering what got you interested in this market and in the Legal Talk Network?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. And it's an honor to be here, and very exciting that you are 50 episodes in on your new show, Law Next, and very, very exciting. And you were actually, the answer to that question is you were one of the reasons that got us interested in that show. And seeing all the incredible hosts and guests that were part of Legal Talk Network, starting back in 2005, when Luann Reeb, who was the founder of it, she had this vision of creating a channel, and an incredible pioneer and vision of creating this channel where creating content that lawyers really wanted to listen to. And her mission was high quality legal education bundled with high quality production. And our interest in it really started when I was a kid, and I didn't really realize it. It was sitting in the backseat of my parents' car listening to AM talk radio and AM news, and listening to what was being created there, and later on in my career, audiobooks, and the convenience of the consumption of that audiobook in terms of the how and where you can listen to it. And we definitely didn't have we were not clairvoyant in terms of the where the industry was going. We just thought that it was really interesting what she had created, and we just thought as a medium this was very powerful and very engaging. And couple that with the notion that lawyers live in a billable hour world, and at that time, most of them did, and still, I guess at this time, most of them still do, although that's changing.
Slowly.
And if you respect your time and care about your time, and you're billing based on your time, you should be listening to on-demand audio, because you can do it. You can listen to it while you're doing all these other things like commuting or exercising or walking the dog or chores around the house, or, to put you to, take your mind off of things, or to put you to sleep at night. And that was the drive. We just saw something that was really interesting. It was a powerful medium. It was beneficial for what we were doing, and it just seemed like the perfect fit for legal professionals.
Yeah, but I mean, you are a businessman. I mean, did you see it as having business potential, or did you see it as something that would be fun to get into as, I don't know, a hobby or something?
Yeah, it's we definitely didn't look at it as a hobby. We definitely saw a business side of it, but when we acquired the network, we also, and I don't know how much background we need to go into the other side of our business at Logical, but we've always invested in education and trust, and holding legal professionals' hands as they embrace change. And this seemed like a logical fit. When we acquired the network, and still this day, we don't have anybody in sales or biz dev, and that is by choice. And we focused on creating content. Our mission is creating content that lawyers want to listen to. And every decision that we make at the company is about creating that content that they're going to want. So we know that there's a meaningful business opportunity here. However, because we funded this and gave ourselves enough runway from the other side of our business, we don't have investors or anyone else to answer to that's forcing us to make money or do things that might interfere with the integrity and the trust of the content and the podcast that we're producing. But we know that down the road, as we can build a really engaged audience from a business perspective, that's very valuable.
And Laurence, you were a lawyer. You had an MBA as well. You were practicing law, doing some consulting. I know you've had a long time interest in the web and internet. But I think, if I'm right, you came to the Legal Talk Network with no podcasting experience per se. So what did you see? What interested you about coming into this job?
Well, I think it was a culmination of just a lot of different interests. Similar to Adam, I grew up listening to talk radio with my dad in the car, and we drive around, and I learned a lot. Listening to the radio. I love sports talk radio and that kind of thing. And I think also I had a curiosity just about audio in general. When I was a kid, I remember some friends and I, we made a movie and we created a soundboard with parts that we went down to Ace Hardware and soldered together. So I'd always had kind of just an interest in how it worked. And, I found Legal Talk Network during the recession. It was kind of make or break time for me. And I had a New Year's resolution to try new things and branch out beyond the law. And it was one of the first job applications that I saw kind of post that resolution. And I clicked on it and I started checking the boxes. It seemed like something I could do. And I reached out to Legal Talk Network, and the rest has just kind of been, history. It's been and I always say this, but I really enjoy what we do, and every day, even during the challenges, I wake up with a big stupid grin on my face, ready to embrace the world. I love what we do, creating content and helping professionals be better professionals.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine a more fun job you could have. But
and by the way, I was just going to throw out that Laurence, for those that don't know him listening to this, I mean, he is a Navy SEAL of podcasting, or Army Ranger, whoever is the most hardcore. I
call him the ever-ready bunny of podcasting. But
I mean, he is a force to be reckoned with. He is incredible when, in terms of his passion and how hard he works, and his commitment to creating great content for legal professionals.
So since you founded this, and it's been 6 years now that you've been in this, Adam, how has podcasting changed within the legal industry? I mean, we've seen it take off, but I mean, what have you observed in terms of how this has grown?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we had some interesting shifts in terms of what we thought we were acquiring, in terms of what we actually did. And this was not any doing by Luann, who we acquired this from. But when we acquired the network, we thought we had a few 100,000 listeners, an audience. And then shortly after we acquired the network, some new platforms came out that allowed you to give some better metrics. And that number of downloads was actually significantly less than that. It was, I want to say, more like 20-odd thousand downloads, and is what we were actually getting. And so, to answer that question, I mean, the audience has grown, and just not only in podcasting as a whole. And I can give you some of that data, and just U.S. consumption of podcasts. I want to say, in 2013, 12% of the U.S. were listening. 12% of the people in the U.S. were listening to podcasts on a monthly basis. In 2019, that's 32%. That's approximately 90 million people on a monthly basis are tuning in. And by the way, that's data from a study by the Infinite Dial from Edison Research and Triton Digital. And that is just parallel to, what's changed is the audience has grown. And a driver of that is that supercomputer that everyone has sitting in their pocket or in their purse. And the fact that they're always connected to the internet, and the fact that these devices are now Bluetooth enabled to their headphones and to their cars. But I think it's also within the legal industry, it's a thirst for good content that is going to help them be better at their profession, smarter, more efficient, and more effective. And it's delivered in a way that they can, consume it whenever they want.
And what about in the legal industry? I mean, you talked about penetration in the market at large. What do you think is happening in the legal industry in terms of listening to podcasts?
It's obviously growing. I mean, last month we had over 300,000 unique downloads across our network, and that just continues to grow. As far as the across the board, we don't have access to that data. I would presume we probably have more consumption than anyone else in the industry, if I had to guess. But we don't know across the industry, but we know not only from the data, but also just from our time on the road, where we have people coming up to us and saying how much they love that episode or how helpful that was. And our hosts also have this notion, which, Bob, I'm sure you probably get all the time, is people probably come up to you. And you've shared some of those stories, which you probably share about the random places people have heard your voice. But our hosts are getting these emails that are really heartwarming and thankful and appreciative about that they're listening to these shows and how they've changed their life or how they've helped them.
Yeah. I don't know, just 300,000. I think I got to check law next, but I think we're well beyond that at this point. But, what are you laughing at? No, we do have funny stories, and I know Laurence has certainly heard a lot of them, but more from my lawyer to lawyer days with Craig Williams, because I think one of the best was pretty early on when Craig was off like in a bar in Australia or something, and some guy came up to him and recognized him from lawyer to lawyer, and it's a real indication of the reach of these things. Laurence, I mean, one of the things, Adam just alluded to it, but one of the things you guys have done is bring podcasting on site in the form of setting up your recording booth at legal conferences all over the country and recording your On the Road series. How did that come about?
Well, I'm sure Adam will have a little bit to say about this because, we often travel in tandem, but, we use a platform when we're out there. It's called, or our show platform's called On the Road Today, but it's gone through evolution over time. And originally it started with Luann Reeb, who did a, kind of, it didn't even really have an official name at the time. It was still being developed, but her first interview was with Bill Gates Sr., of course, father of Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, and it went through several innovations afterwards, became video with longtime producer Kate Nutting, who still works for the network, but was Legal Talk Network's original producer. She did short videos from Legal Tech New York, and eventually we got back to that.
Luann did a bunch with F. Lee Bailey, too, I remember way back when.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, no, they still have that. That is still available in our archives.
Yeah.
So... But yeah, no, went through several, renditions and eventually kind of got back to audio format. And we re-engaged it in 2014. We returned to conference, went to Maslow's Map had I think it was called their Super Marketing Conference. And we had some of our hosts, Jared, and it was Jared Correa and Heidi Alexander hosting an event there at Suffolk Law School. And that was kind of our reintroduction back to it. And then Adam and I went off on our own. Did Legal Tech West Coast, kind of staying in that tradition of Legal Tech. And we've just, after that, we decided there was something to that. And we kind of took the show on the road, so to speak.
And I think that's been pretty well received. I mean, it's always fun to see you guys at conferences, and it's always kind of a hub of activity. I know I did a few of those with you in the early days, and well, I still do a few of them occasionally, but I think when you first started doing that on a regular basis, people would kind of walk by and kind of look over their shoulder at you like, what the hell are these people doing here?
Right.
And it seems like now everybody knows what's going on and everybody wants to be part of it.
Yeah. It's interesting, Bob. I mean, actually, those were some of my favorite episodes, and then the ones that I share the most were some interviews that you did with others from on the road, just because you asked those great questions and really got deep into the personalities and the biographies of them and what was happening with their company or organization. But I think with these, and yeah, we're definitely getting more known and more recognized. In the earlier days, yes, we had a springboard from when we acquired the network, but we just decided that relationships are cultivated in person. And this is really hard to do remotely, and people want to work with those that they know. And so we just jumped on the plane and started going and showing up and donating a lot of the production, which we still do today for a number of organizations, especially for access to justice and pro bono and things that we just think need to get out there, whether a budget is there or not. We'll just get on the plane and go and fund all of that production. But it certainly got a lot easier over time in the validation, not only of them seeing us and seeing the effort and the quality of the production that we do, but also the data. I mean, these episodes are sometimes getting thousands of downloads, and we'll record a bunch of them on location. And so they're reaching, firstly, it's this notion, you go to a conference, you can't, depending on what it is, you can't attend every session. And so shedding some light on some of those topics that were covered and potentially deep diving on them as well. But also, we call it conference FOMO. These are the great topics that were covered here, and this is what you missed out on, and look how great it was. So you should probably be here next year or whenever this comes up again. But it's a win-win, because we've got a bunch of experts that are there in one room, and we want to take what's in their head and share it with the greater legal community. So it works, and that's why we were just willing to get up and go and do it, and didn't matter if we generated revenue. We just wanted to add value.
We'll get back to my interview in just a moment, but first, let's take a break to hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. And now, let's continue this week's interview. We've alluded to this idea that podcasting has grown phenomenally in popularity over the last couple of years, especially over the last 6 years since you guys have been in it. Why do you think that is? Particularly in the legal field, why do you think it is that legal professionals have become so interested in podcasting? Adam,
listening to them or creating them?
Well, we can break it down. I mean, it's the two sides, but generally, let's talk sort of generally, because I think it's both sides right now apply. Obviously, I mean, it is funny how many lawyers are now starting, not just lawyers, legal professionals of all kinds are now starting podcasts. Right. That it used to be somewhat few and far between that would happen. And listenership has also skyrocketed. So I mean, there's just sort of across the board interest in this. And let's start with sort of the big picture and then maybe break it down a little bit more. But why do you think the interest has soared?
Laurence, you want to take the first stab at that?
Oh, sure. So I think Bob, just in general, people are more aware of what podcasting is. And so, I think to that, I like to credit Serial for a little bit of that. It's like, to be honest, the first time I've been in the right place at the right time for my career, but Serial really put, podcasting on the map, and, other hosts like Mark Maron and Adam Carolla have put a real popular voice to it. And so I think that's been part of it. But I think, another key part of it is infrastructure. And so, as mobile devices, your cell phone, your tablet have gotten more advanced and broadband has become incredibly accessible. That high-speed internet that was required to do a lot of this has made this a lot easier to consume, the awareness and the ability. And then you're seeing, products like cars and home theater, catch up with that. And you're able to connect with your mobile device via Bluetooth. And people are taking this content, this on-demand content with them everywhere, whether it's a drive, it's on their commute. I see everybody like in New York on AirPods listening to whatever it is that they're listening to, but it's that consumption is made so easy. And so I just think that infrastructure was real important to making this popular and building the awareness. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, Adam, I'd be interested to hear what what you have to say on that. I know you've got some ideas, but for me, it was serial and the infrastructure.
Yeah, I think those are definitely important drivers. And I tell, this was now over a year ago that my mom came to me and said, oh, sweetie, I have these podcast recommendations for you. And I sort of flipped out because I'm used to a manila folder or a magazine or newspaper article, organized and folded. And it's becoming mainstream. And I think specifically with regards to the legal industry is I think that they're frustrated with the caliber of content that they've been getting. And they know that there is good stuff out there in the mainstream world that's engaging and powerful and creating what are called these driveway moments where you're listening to this on your way home, and it's so good that you don't want to go inside because you want to hang on to the next word or the next portion of the story. And personally, I think that there's a void in the market for good content that's not an infomercial or where they feel like they're just getting stuff, shoved down their throats of things that maybe are helpful or not helpful. And this medium provides a platform where they can get really good, really helpful, very specific content when they want it. And I don't really know many other channels within legal that can deliver it in the way that this does. So I think that's one of the biggest drivers, is that they see the value and the benefit of the content that they truly want, and then they can listen to it or consume it however and whenever, wherever they want to.
Yeah, I think that last point is really important. I think that's why podcasting has kind of overtaken video for lawyers. I mean, a lot of lawyers were making videos for a while, and you're not seeing that as much. But the great thing about podcasting is lawyers are busy, and they only have windows of time to do certain things. And podcasting fits into whatever their schedule is. A lot of us are listening to podcasts while we're exercising or driving in our cars. That's probably the most common comment I get. People will say to me, "Oh, I always listen to you while I'm commuting to work."
Right.
Or if I have a long drive, I'll load up a few of your podcasts. I think, boy, that's going to be a boring drive, but good for them for doing that. I appreciate it.
Well, here's the crazy thing in my mind is my home and my office are very close together. And there are so many podcasts that I want to listen to that I'm considering moving my home or my office to have a longer commute.
Well, come to Boston, Adam. Maybe I'll give you a nice drive, a nice long drive. What does your mother listen to?
Her first recommendation was Malcolm Gladwell's show. The title of it is escaping me right now.
Revisionist
Laurence,
history?
Revisionist history.
Yes,
right?
thank you.
Yeah.
Revisionist. That was the first recommendation that she gave me.
Yeah.
Outside of obviously every episode of what's on the Legal Talk Network.
Yeah. He's actually had a few interesting episodes lately focused on law-related stuff,
Yes.
including one in which he took the LSAT. That was a really funny episode to listen to.
Yeah, and actually, Bill Henderson, certainly guest on Legal Talk Network and a former guest of yours, was part of that episode.
Was part of that episode, right? So, Laurence, I'm a lawyer, and I'm thinking I want to start a podcast. And what advice do you give me?
So we get approached by this all the time. It's a question that comes up. We get emails, we'll run into people at conferences, and it's becoming a more and more common question, which is good. And so I think I kind of divide this into the why, the what, the who. And so I think the most important thing for me anyway, evaluating these opportunities is, why are you doing this? And so, I think if someone is just looking for a simple way to self-promote, themselves or their firm, I don't think that lands with the audience, especially today. The audience is becoming much more selective in what they're listening to in that last little space of free time that they have. And so I think know why you're doing it. Are you doing it to educate people? Are you doing it because you're passionate about something? And I think that lends, well, that kind of gets into the what part. And so what do you want to talk about? And we recommend, obviously people respond to expertise, but it's not just being an expert in something. Are you passionate about it? Are you interested in it? And, I think when people are interested in it, it comes off really well. I went to a podcasting conference and one of the guys that I was talking to there had a spearfishing podcast here in San Diego. And I don't know anything about spearfishing, but this guy was so all about it that I got interested in it just because it's infectious, and I think that really resonates with the audience, and that gets into the who. The who part of that is, like, who are you talking to? And I think with like lawyers, who are you making this podcast for is a very important question. Are you making it for your clients? Are you making it for the profession? Are you making this for the general public? And all of those are, a little bit different when it comes to the messaging. And I think that's one of the things that's very important when considering whether or not you want to build a podcast. But I think one of the other things we recommend is take your time, do it right. And unless you're making some type of seasonal podcast where you're going to do season 1 and everyone's going to binge listen to it, we recommend monthly as a starting place and be consistent in that. And so, plan it out and, make sure that you can deliver it on time all the time and plan to stick with it a while. It takes time to build an audience. And so that's what we tell people when they call us. And I think that holds true even today. Monthly is kind of the minimal frequency that you should launch a podcast with.
Adam, anything to add to that? What's your advice to somebody who's considering this?
Well, I can tell you how a number of the conversations end that we have with them.
How did they end?
And that is a really candid, you shouldn't do this. And we definitely, and just to add to what Laurence said, is if you're doing this for the right reasons, you truly want to, you have expertise, and you want to share that, or you want to bring on really interesting guests, and you want to share that for the right reasons. We get a lot of them of, I like talking and I want to share, what I do. Or, something, as I mentioned, the infomercial earlier, that just it's not going to be really engaging. And the reality of it is, as you know, is this is really hard to do. Especially without the support of a network or professionals. And even if you have it, it's still really hard to build an audience. And it takes time. And this is not well, here's the misunderstanding is everyone, I have a smartphone. Of course I can do this. Or, I have audio recording. Why can't I do this? And it's just like everybody has a camera on their phone now that they think that they're Annie Leibovitz or, a professional photographer. And it's just not the case. You have to be really, really strategic, really thoughtful, and really intentional about your approach to this. So that's the direction. That's how a lot of these that's how a lot of these conversations end. Is that you can do this. Is this the best use of your resources? Because to do this properly, it's expensive. To do this effectively, it's going to take time. And if you're just trying to get more clients, depending on the practice area, it's unlikely that your clients are going to be tuning in to listen to this, unless, like I said, you got really strategic about making content for your prospective clients. And perfect example of that is you're a family lawyer and you bring on, psychiatrists and experts to talk about the divorce process or the separation process or the co-parenting or parallel parenting process. And you bring on these thought leaders that can really help you navigate that process and give you some information and potentially build trust in advance of them either engaging your help, because that would be a differentiator. But again, that's a big time commitment to do that, and maybe your resources are better spent elsewhere. But sorry, that was just an example. You didn't ask that question, but I thought I'd give one.
No, that's a good example. And it's interesting because I have, well, I'd say it, but I've heard a few that they probably should have asked you first before they started it, because they're a little clumsy sometimes. There are some where you listen to, you can tell they're just kind of sitting there reading questions, or I mean, that kind of raises the question of what about the format? I mean, there are, I know just on the Legal Talk Network, there are some podcasts that are interviews, such as Lawyer to Lawyer, where there's a guest on talking about issues in the news. There are others where the hosts are kind of just talking to each other, like Dennis Kennedy and Tom Miles' podcast, for example. And then there are some of you guys have started getting into some more highly produced ones as well.
Right. Yeah. We really roll up our sleeves, and even when somebody has the budget to bring us on, we will still only do that if we think it is aligned and we think that there is the chance of building an engaged audience. So even if they come to us, they've got the money, it's an organization, they want to do this, we will still say no if we don't think that we can build a big and engaged audience with it. And by the way, we've also had organizations come to us and ask our hosts to endorse a product and want to write some big checks to that. And there's no amount of money that they can come offer us to get them to do that. Just nothing will interfere with the integrity of the trust. And that's also why I've been really slow to bring on biz dev and sales and a monetization strategy. You know, we like generating revenue. We definitely generate revenue. But that's not the focus. The focus is in the quality of the content. So
would you forward those emails to lawnext.com? It's
we know you are of the same thought as well, Bob.
So Adam, is there a particular format that you tend to recommend or encourage people to look at?
Again, it all depends on who they are and that partner and what they want to share. We definitely like the interview style. And it's definitely been beneficial and definitely worked, and we get really good feedback on this. Although we are certainly pushing the limits on that, and what some of these bigger, more mainstream produced shows are doing. And there's one show in particular that was Laurence Colletti's baby, and it's called Make No Law, and he pushed for this for a while, and we were just intertwined with other shows and other projects that we were working on. And he finally just said, we have to do this. And so he got the green light. And that's a show where we are retelling the story of material First Amendment Supreme Court cases. And there is voice acting, as Laurence likes to call it, our community theater. There's narration, there's storytelling. We're getting Oye sound bites. All of the music is originally scored in our studio by our team, and the sound effects in the background. And the product of that, and it's hosted by a guy, a lawyer, criminal lawyer here in Los Angeles by the name of Ken White, who has also got a really large following. And the byproduct of that is a really good, interesting show that people love. That said, that's not for everyone, and the production value of that is not there. And there's just sometimes some people just want the facts. They just want the information from the most qualified person that can give that to them. And as long as you're not screwing up the audio, which is really easy to do in terms of the sounds and the compression and the levels, you're not turning it up and turning it down. It doesn't sound like the person is 50 stories below in a echo chamber. That format works as well if you've got that content that is helpful. Laurence, you may have some other thoughts on this.
Oh, yeah, I enjoy all of our formats. I think we're probably the most known for the interview format. One of the great things about the interview format is that it's not always dependent entirely on the host to carry the show, and so. Although it may be somewhat at times challenging to always schedule a guest at a time that works for them, that content comes off really nice, that conversation. People really respond to that. And, in terms of growing it, the scalability, you've got a guest that comes on, they're absolutely willing to help you promote it. And so you've got someone else that's self-interested that'll help you promote it. And I think it's got like it's definitely got a networking component to it. We have certainly opened up some doors and business opportunities from people that we've interviewed, and it's a shared experience. And I don't think we've ever had a complaint after an interview, someone said, "Oh, that was just terrible. I'm never doing podcasting again." Generally speaking, people say that was fun. They enjoyed it. And now you've got the shared experience that you can connect about. So I think interview format's great for that. In terms of getting stuff off the ground, I think the solo host or the multi-host, like you're talking about there, Bob, with Dennis and Tom, they talk with each other, and that show, they have a great time, but that's a lot of pressure to carry an entire show, a 30, 40-minute episode, but they love it. They don't have to schedule with anybody, and so they completely own the content of that. And, we are really turning a page here at Legal Talk Network, doing the narrative and storytelling. And I absolutely love that. I have to say, it's probably some of my favorite producer moments is that one, when we're working on Popat, that 3-hour deep dive. I go find this specific Kennedy quote, from one of the presidential libraries, or find just the perfect bomb whistle, for the F-bomb. It just had to be just right. It took me hours to find. But, it's a lot of fun. And obviously the investment of that is tremendous. But there's great reward with that. We get a lot of compliments for it. But like Adam was saying, it's not always for everybody. You have to kind of figure out what you like, what's sustainable for you, and what's your personality lends to.
I think I was even one of the voice actors on one of the early episodes of that. So that can be a challenge to my listeners, is to go out and listen to all those shows and find my voice on the I'm not even sure which one it was.
I'll see if I can find that. I'll find it for you.
Yeah, it's funny how you say that people have never, kind of complained after being guests on a podcast. I mean, again, I remember the kind of the early days of doing this, and so I think a lot of people had no idea they were even on a podcast. I mean, I think they thought this was some kind of a radio program that was being broadcast. Especially I remember our first one way back when, where we had the ABA president on. He was very gracious in coming on, but I'm sure he had absolutely no idea what was going on during that recording. But what about that? What about people who maybe they don't want to start a podcast, but they want to be a guest on a podcast? How does a lawyer do that? Laurence,
well, they can contact us and make a good pitch. And we've actually we do present to this at different conferences. What's a good pitch? And so, contact us. Contact our producers, and especially if you want to have like a subject in mind that you want to talk about, but it really pays off to marry that up with a show that we produce and tell us why you're a good guest. And if you've had some media, if you had some media appearances, definitely include that, and share with us your social following. And so probably the most ideal guest, obviously we want the best expert we can get in a topic that we regularly cover. And if you have a great social media presence, that's tremendous. If you have authorship behind you, I recommend people start with writing. I know Kevin O'Keefe, a mutual friend of ours, is big into blogging, and that carries through if you want to start doing additional types of media presence when you're established as an expert through writing. Believe me, because we look for them, especially with Lawyer to Lawyer. As you know, Kate Nutting and I have reached out and tried to find the best experts for you all over the course of years. We look to their writing, we look to their media appearances, and see how comfortable they are. What do they sound like? How do they come off? And so the less questions we have to ask, the better off it is. So if you're interested in making media appearances, I recommend you write a blog, and that's something easy enough to do. Try to reach out. I think the hardest aspect of that is getting started, but each and every time you do it, it gets easier to do, and just make sure to share it with the program that you're trying to reach out to.
So, Adam, with all this interest in podcasting and so many people starting podcasts and listening to podcasts, what do you think this market is headed over the next few years? And do you have any concerns that we're going to kind of reach a saturation point and the market gets too crowded?
It's a great question, and there's always the risk and the concern of saturation. However, I believe in the free market, and the foam rises to the top. And there's always going to be, I shouldn't say always, because I think we'll probably get to the point where we'll just be able to, cue a topic, and that'll automatically be implanted in our brain, or it may already be there. Maybe I'm going off too far in the future here. I think I saw a statistic. There's something like 700,000 podcasts out there right now, and that's going to continue to grow. And I think we're going to see, and that's one of the reasons why we try to be really candid and direct. And I don't want to be Debbie Downer here. Firms and organizations and thought leaders that truly are committed to to thought leadership and education, they should start them, and they should do it in the right way. So I want to be really clear. There's lots of reasons to start it, although again, we get a lot of them that they shouldn't. There's a real opportunity, and there's a couple elements behind that. It's the shifting workforce in legal, the billable, the question of the future of the billable hour. I think that there are a lot of topics that should be covered, and as a medium, as people get more and more exposed to it, we look at podcasting as the 15-year overnight success, and let's call it, we're here on year 13 or 14. If we're lucky, there's a long way to go just in terms of the convenience. It still is not that easy to listen to a podcast. I mean, yeah, you can go to a website and click on the play, but to get that on your phone, there's still a lot of lawyers and legal professionals out there that don't know that if they have an iPhone, there is a built-in podcast app that you can't get rid of. And if you have CarPlay in your car, that there's a reason why that podcast app is there. And again, you can't get rid of it. So there's a lot of new listeners that we have, and I believe, I could be wrong, but as the industry gets a little bit more comfortable with the notion of it changing, which it's one of the last industries that has yet to fully change, they will embrace these a medium like this to get their information because of the convenience of it. So I think long answer to your question, obviously, is there's a lot more consumption. Our bullseye is we want 50% of the U.S. legal market tuning in on a monthly basis. That's the sort of every decision that we think about in terms of how do we get to that. And we've still got some distance. There's 1.3 million lawyers, a tremendous amount of legal support, and law students as well that are coming into the profession. There will be a many years of an opportunity for those that want great content, helpful whenever they want it. And so obviously we're biased, but we're very bullish on the future. And I think saturation will happen. However, the best shows will still be there and still be front and center.
Laurence, you've listened to a whole bunch of podcasts sitting there in the on the recording side and as a host as well. Any really embarrassing or funny or crazy things that have happened over the years?
Yeah, I don't know about it.
Excluding me, of course.
Oh, no, never. But no, we've seen a lot. We've traveled a lot of different cities, and we've certainly had a good time. We Adam and I kind of have a little joke, hashtag adventures in podcasting. And it really is an adventure. You're coming in at weird hours, and you got to be ready to go for a show. You're packing tons of gear. I get routinely heavily searched at the airport for the amount of metal I carry through the X-ray machines. But it's always interesting. We've met fantastic people. We've met Senator Lindsey Graham was on with the law students. We've met we keep meeting the new leadership of the American Bar Association, the presidents of bar associations around the country. But there are definitely things that happen that are unplanned. I think one of my favorite ones that I laugh about a lot is in the middle of a conversation during the recording. It's clear that we're recording. Everyone's engaged. I've got headphones on. It's pretty obvious what we're doing. And still people walk into the show and ask us what we're doing right on one of the microphones. It happens all the time. That's pretty funny. But I think if I had to pick one moment that was just absolutely hilarious to me and caught me completely off guard, the GC of LegalZoom, Chaz Rampenthal, came over to one of our Beer for Bloggers, and we were asking him a series of what we were hoping would be like, in a professional way, an uncomfortable question. He gets on and starts singing a song by Bon Jovi. I've never recovered from that. It was absolutely tremendous.
Was that Who's Your Tech Show Crush? Was that one?
It may have been. Yeah, it may have been. And I think you won that one, Bob. I think you won the we did a little study on that, and you got the most nominations for Tech Show Crush.
Oh, great.
And on top of that, there have been, not just a Beer for Bloggers, but that's been a question that we've asked, what would make this conference experience the best? And your name, like getting to meet Bob Ambrogi, has come up a lot in that question.
Well, like I say, I can be bought. Go ahead, send the checks, and you can
I'm
have
registered
an
at
autograph.
Bank.
I'm going to sell my autograph at the. Yeah.
I'm registered at Bank of America. Feel free to.
No, I can't be bought, and I'm glad you guys can't be either. Hey, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to celebrate my 50th episode by joining me today. It's really been a lot of fun talking to you.
It was an honor to be here, Bob.
Likewise. Thank you very much for including us. Congratulations. Love that you're in this medium, continued, and you will continue to just share and add value to those listeners that are out there. So thank you for thinking of us for this one, and really excited to love the show and really excited to see it continue to go.
Yeah, and Bob, next time, can you ask your producer next time he's in San Diego, we can get Taco Tuesday?
Taco Tuesday with my producer, Ben Ambrogi. Absolutely. Well, we've been talking with Adam Camras, the CEO, and Laurence Colletti, the executive producer of the Legal Talk Network. Another big thanks to MyCase, our sponsor of our show, with thousands of customers, is a trusted practice management solution helping lawyers across the country run organized, efficient, and successful law firms. Find them at mycase.com. And a big thanks to my producer, Ben Ambrogi, even when it's not Taco Tuesday, for producing and editing the show. That's it for this week. This is Bob Ambrogi. All right, guys.
All right, I am starting my recording. See, that's why you keep me off.
Starting
Sorry,
your
Ben.
recording? You're starting your recording?
Sorry, stopping my recording.
Oh.
This is why I do not
now's
get
when you stop.
Oh, that's how this works.